is clearly not MBA work. And anybody who's ever run their own business, who's an entrepreneur, knows that one of the most important things that we can do is to pay our people equitably and fairly, and have them understand that they are receiving fair wages for what they are doing for you. But Jesus kind of seems to be clueless about that. I know in my own crews that if some began to compare themselves to others and what they received, then the morale went down. If they began to feel that they were not being paid enough or were actually not being paid fairly, then their work would slip. But Jesus is not seemingly understanding that. I had one worker who began to think that she was worth more than another. And when she came to me, she said, I think I ought to be paid more than Sarah. I said to her, I said, you know, everyone gets paid the same here. The leaders get paid the same and the crews get work the same. And she said, it's not enough. I'm not satisfied. And she left the work. There are people in our lives that seem to think that it's not enough, that they're not satisfied, that they seem to be overwhelmed with what God has given them, that life has given them, that the world has given them, and it's not enough. People deserve compassion and the ability to listen, our ability to listen to them, to say, yes, you have had heartbreak, you've had death, you've had disease, you've had poverty. But if you can have hope, all of that seems to be changed. That is no longer overwhelming. That somehow or another, with hope, anything can be happening. Anything you can deal with. But there are people who seem to have the resilience, and then those who don't, who just are overwhelmed with life. And the resilient ones have one ingredient that seems to be missing from all. How do you teach those who don't have enough what the resilient ones have? I know from my own life, when I have been hopeless, when I have been feeling that everything is just overwhelming and I cannot be satisfied with anything. What I have been taught is to be grateful. If somebody had started to tell me, oh, the abundance of God's great gifts to you, you must be grateful, I would say, that's too much. But to be grateful just a little bit is the beginning. Because the journey toward hope, you can stutter step, you can stall, you can take baby steps, you can take leaps. But it's hope at the end of the journey that we are gifted with. And if I can be grateful for the sunrise, then maybe I can be grateful for the sunset. If I can be grateful for my first breath in the morning, then maybe I can be grateful for the second and third breath. If I can be grateful for the smell of coffee in the morning, then maybe I can be grateful for the smell of the dew on the fields, the smell of the salt water. That little bit of gratitude can build and build. The gratefulness and the hope of today can become the hope of the future, can become something that changes and transforms today. so that tomorrow will be better. That I have that hope and that promise. That somehow or another today, there is enough hope for tomorrow. For those of us who went to McCallum either last week or this week, we saw hope. Most of us worked during the day at the Immigrant Center. And the Immigrant Center was like an oasis of hospitality in the middle of the horror of these people's lives. Because they had gotten to America, had been arrested by the Border Patrol, had been put into detention, into the detention centers. And their ticket out was a bus ticket sent by their family or friends to someplace in America. And with that ticket and orders to appear before a judge in that city, they went to the bus station. Well, Catholic Charities gathered them up from the bus station and they brought them to us. The tradition of the Immigrant Center is when those families walked in, we stood and clapped. And the change in their faces, even in that instant, was, I am welcome. There is hope. They were dirty. Most of them had head lice. Some of the little people had pneumonia and some of the coughs that came up from their toes. They were dirty. Their shoes had no shoelaces. And our job was to welcome them, to find them clothes, to feed them their first hot meal. One lady said it's the first hot meal she'd had in 22 days, and she was one of the lucky ones. We gave them showers, and then with a backpack of new clothes, they went to the bus station again to go off into our beautiful country. Every night, we would gather together for a meal, and we would talk about what we had seen that day. We talked about the people we had met and the transformation that they had on their faces from the moment they walked in and heard our applause to the moment that they stood and waited for the bus to take them back to the bus station. There was one little girl who truly, after her shower, became as beautiful as a princess. Things were all not great for her because she still had the head lice. But when we finished the day, and I went back to my hotel room, I went to find my passport because that was the greatest gift that I could see in my life at that day. That passport was given to me by virtue of the fact that I was born in this country. For no other reason than I was born here. That passport allows me to go where I want to go, to work in this country, to earn a good wage. But also it allows me to help others who come into this country. Now, some of them will not stay in this country and will be sent back. But what we have given them by their brief time here is the gift that certainly my forebears received many, many, many centuries ago and generations. We are all given the gift of gratefulness today and the hope of tomorrow. Whether it's a small step, a baby step of great relief and gratitude, or maybe it's a leap into the hope that we have been given. Thanks be to God for all that we have been given. Our passports, our lives here, and the opportunity to help others, regardless of their history, their present, or their future, to give them some hope and some gift. And the gift of God in that hope. Amen.
Amen.